They were ripping and banging on AEW this past week. The Wednesday night episode of AEW this past week was called Beach Break and had a beach theme. It's January, and they're in Cleveland. How was this a beach break?
In name only.
This wasn't even a son of a beach.
Okay.
Anyway, well, Cleveland does have beaches. You just can't see them now this time of year because of the ice and pollution. Anyway, this was the big, the showdown over this hotly disputed TNT title. The TNT championship that's now defended on TBS. Cody, who was the original champion, he beat Sammy, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and Sammy Guevara, who's the interim champion because Cody was quarantined and missed one TV, and potentially because he hadn't signed his contract yet, and we don't know that he has. But so they ended up with two TNT TV title holders on TBS. And so they decided to settle things with a ladder match, because why not? Because that was just instantly called for, right? That was on the top of everybody's mind. Well, why don't they have a ladder match? Did we ever determine where that came from, or just they thought it was time to have another ladder match?
Well, if you go back to the history of Michaels and Razor Ramon, there were 2 intercontinental champions. So this being the situation where for the last couple of weeks we had 2 champions, there's only one way to decide who is the rightful TNT champion, and that is the ladder match.
All righty. I noticed a few things at the start. Both of them are baby faces, and the crowd booed both of them. Cody more, but there were still, you heard there were boos for Sammy, because there are some people now that are saying, okay, we're going to cheer for Cody. So they're booing the baby faces he wrestles, but most people are still saying, we don't like Cody, so they're booing him more. But this created a situation in this bizarro world that the booking of AEW creates, where there's 2 baby faces that are going to wrestle for a title, and they shake hands before the match, and the crowd booed the handshake. Did you see that?
I did.
So, and the belts are ridiculously high in the air. But so now the crowd booed the handshake to start off. So this is the kind of people that would have cheered the hunter that shot Bambi's mother. They started this thing, and I started liking it instantly because they did nice wrestling spots. Sammy has improved his confidence. He looks better physically. You can see it on his face. He feels more at home. He's more experienced. He's really, he's into this now, right? And I was really enjoying the wrestling match that they were having. Until after about 3 minutes, they went to the floor and started after one of the 6 fucking ladders that's sitting outside. And then it turned into a ladder match. And as we've mentioned many times, that just fucking sucks. Cody got a big ladder and bridged the ring to the rail with it, and then left it sit there, so it's going to come into play later on. They're fighting on the floor. They go over the rail way out into the crowd, and they're fighting in the arena, nowhere near the ladders. Why are the 2 baby faces out in the arena like 2 mortal enemies that want to kill each other, fighting nowhere near the place and the equipment that they can use to win the match? This wasn't a blood feud match. Sammy didn't, attack Cody from behind and steal his title. Cody never fucking held Sammy down and sodomized his Dalmatian. They just feel like that Even though they're putting a hat on a hat, even though they're already doing one gimmick match where they got to climb shit, they have to go out in the arena and check that box off for every indie wrestling fan's dream. Oh, they're fighting in the arena. Anybody can do it. Doesn't take any talent. These guys are good. They can work. That's why I wish they weren't having a ladder match, because they could actually have a good match. But anybody can fight out in the crowd. Not necessarily in a ladder match, because it's not necessary. And then they're already going to do enough stuff in the ring. Sammy jumps up on the guardrail and does a cutter off the guardrail onto Cody to the floor, but Cody just went down to his hands and knees, and Sammy's the one that landed flat of his back on the concrete. Cody's face came nowhere near the fucking floor. They got back in the ring and fought with the ladder. Then, for the break spot, Cody gives Sammy a superplex off the top of the ladder. It looked great. It wasn't the finish. It wasn't even close. It's a break spot. So they went to the break. And when we came back, they were already back up fighting. And Cody drops. Cody had one of the ladders unfolded but upside down, so it was like a V shape. And picks Sammy up for like Arn Anderson's old gourd buster, but drops him stomach first across the fucking supports in the middle of the ladder, which you can't work. These guys, they're gonna fucking cripple somebody. And then this was a nice spot. He figure forward Sammy's legs through the ladder and then put the figure four on him. That's great. What a heel. He's a great heel. The best heel in the fucking company is the guy who says in these exact words on television, I'm not going to turn heel. Then they've got two ladders in the ring. One of them's 10 feet tall and one of them's 12 feet tall. And this was the spot of the match. Sammy jumped off the top rope onto the top of the one ladder and jumped to the other ladder and gave Cody a cutter. And we mentioned why that there's no sense in calling this a cutter because Dallas Page is not involved. RKO, whatever the fuck. Gave Cody that off the top of the big ladder from the small one, and they took the bump perfectly. Cody went face first. Sammy went. It was a great visual. It was perfectly done. It was not only one of the bigger bumps that you'll ever see, but also one of the more spectacular setups and springboards into it. I couldn't believe it. Neither could the people after they sold it for 15 seconds and got back up and started climbing ladders. And then they had both ladders, and one guy was on each. And then Sammy was trying to climb, but his back was to Cody. And Cody grabbed him, and Sammy kind of leaned back for him. Okay. Cody hooks Sammy and gives him the crossroads off the ladder to the ground. And Sammy sold it motionless like death while Cody set the ladder up, and Cody starts climbing the ladder. Sammy's been flat of his back for 30 seconds. Cody's almost up the ladder. Sammy pops up and runs up the ladder behind Cody, fresh as a daisy. And now they're both hanging off the trapeze that the belts are hanging from, that obviously they've reinforced for this spot. And as they're both hanging from the belt apparatus, Sammy drops, and then Cody drops. And Brian, do you know what they just did there without even realizing that they did it?
What's that?
They both took the scaffold match bump. Think about it. They're hanging from the thing that's 20 feet in the air and they drop to their feet. The match is not even over yet. They won't finish this fucking thing for anything in the world. Cody has given Sammy a crossroads off the ladder and a superplex off the top of the ladder. Sammy gave Cody a cutter off the top of the big ladder. And now they've both just taken the scaffold match bump. all in the same match on free television that honestly people aren't going to remember next week because they're going to have some other fucked up stunt show that'll surpass this. And in a lot of these spots, poor Paul Turner, the referee, I loved him in Ring of Honor, great guy. We didn't bury him. We gave him some authority. He's just useless there like the rest of the referees, but he's actually on camera holding the ladder so that they can do these goofy spots. The referee was holding the ladder. I mean, one time, Brian Hildebrand, Mark Curtis, bless him, Tracy Smothers and Chris Candido are having a ladder match. I want to say it might have been in Beckley, West Virginia. I don't know where it was.
It was the Bluegrass Brawl, wasn't it?
It was the Bluegrass Brawl, son of a bitch, the big one in Pikeville. And they beat that ladder up that they had so much. And by the way, we found out you should always have a second ladder, but there should only be one ladder at a ladder match, because if you have 6 ladders, it becomes a goofy fucking visual. And it also encourages all these guys to do these stupid spots. If you have one ladder, they got to fight over the ladder. They got to set the ladder up and they got to climb it. Nice and easy to understand. But we should have had a secondary one because they beat that ladder up so bad on each other that the leg broke. And to get the finish in, because they couldn't jump that high, Brian Hildebrand had to get under the ladder in state of emergency and hold it while they climbed up and did the deal. And he came back and apologized to me afterwards. He said, I said, you had no other choice. You had to. But these ladders weren't broken. They were just doing too much goofy, risky shit on top of them. The referee in front of the fans had to hold the ladder. And I actually saw somebody on Twitter remark, I said, what's wrong with that? Okay, next time you watch UFC, when one of the guys gets on top of the other guy, is the referee holding the guy so that the other guy can fucking beat the shit out of him? The referee is supposed to be impartial. This is supposed to be a match where these guys settle their shit with a ladder, and the referee's there to fucking call for the winner when somebody gets the belt. Now the referee's got to be put in position of enabling the stunt show. So, now they're fighting on the floor again, after all these bumps, by the way. And that midget Del Sol, whatever the fuck his name is, Mobile Midget, he comes out and gets in the ring and starts yelling at Cody. And Cody, he didn't get in the ring. He started yelling at Cody on the floor, and Cody grabs him and throws him in the ring and gives him a pile driver. And you never see him again. But then suddenly, while Cody was pile driving the other stooge, Sammy is 100% again. After the superplex, after the cutter off the top, after the scaffold bump, after the fucking blah, blah, blah. And he does a dive on Cody from the ring to the floor and then hits Cody with Sammy's finish on the floor while he's selling no effects of anything that's happened. And I'm like, please let this fucking end. It will never end. And then Sammy pulls out another ladder from underneath the ring. And he puts Cody on the bridged ladder. Remember that from 20 minutes ago? And Cody lays there for 45 seconds while Sammy climbs the big ladder, stands on the top of it, does a senton off of it, and lands right on Cody Rhodes. The ladder didn't buckle. Cody did. Both of them wrist. Sammy just bounces right off the fucking thing to the floor. Both of them risking breaking their necks for a phony spot that people won't remember next week, and it still wasn't the finish. And here's the thing. If Sammy could put Cody on that bridged ladder and he would lay there for 45 seconds while Sammy climbed this giant ladder, stood up there, prayed and made the sign of the cross and all this stuff like I'm a crazy idiot, which he is, and then dives off and Cody never moved. Why didn't Sammy just get in the ring and go climb and get the belt? I don't understand. But after Sammy took that bump and bounced off Cody and knocked all the air out of Cody, within 30 seconds, Sammy had rolled into the ring and climbed the ladder. But fortunately, Cody did the same thing. After the fucking guy dove off a 15-foot ladder and just landed right on him and crushed all the air out of him, Cody managed to run up the other side so they could fight on the top. And then Sammy grabbed one of the belts and hit Cody in the head with it, and he took the bump, and Sammy got both belts. There were 5 or 6 more impressive bumps in that match than the one that the finish came from, but none of those won the match because the way they had set it up, it wasn't time. This was not Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels. This was a stunt show. Cody Rhodes and Sammy Guevara, both great in the ring. They would have had a good match if they'd have had a regular match. They've had some. This wasn't one because it sucked. Because it was ridiculous. They can't have these ladder matches anymore without stuntman bullshit and constant furniture. Why do you need to use other furniture in a fucking match with a ladder? Why do you need 6? Why do you have to take every bump possible off the top of these ladders to show that nothing is going to hurt you and nothing works, even though probably a lot of them hurt, and then win the fucking match with a simple little bullshit because it's time? Michaels and Razor never lost sight of this as a contest where 2 of us opposing each other are supposed to get this ladder, climb this thing, and get the belt. That's all they needed to work with. And it was preposterous in its own way, but it made sense. Nothing was out of the way. Nothing was ridiculous. They built the thing as it went. The bigger amount of punishment came toward the end. They didn't start out with, fucking anal sex and finish up with heavy petting. But since then, every one of these guys that wants to have a ladder match is going to try to make it more complicated and more illogical and less sensible and require more cooperation from the opponents to do a bigger stunt show that registers with people less and less because they see more and more. And this was an example. As I said this one time, and I found out old Colt Cabana heard it and he wasn't happy. Well, you know what? I don't give a shit. He's standing there waiting to run in at the Hammerstein Ballroom one night when El Generico and Kevin Steen are having their ladder, table, chair, Home Depot fiasco. And I'm on the stage. I said, this is everything that's currently wrong with modern wrestling. Furniture and garbage in the ring and setting up stunts to enable each other to fall through shit for meaningless pops from people that all they want to see is a goddamn car wreck. That's why we're in the position we're in. That's why all these guys have short careers. That's why they're constantly undergoing surgery. And that's why they're expecting to get more money per head out of an ever-dwindling base of fans because none of this shit means a goddamn thing anymore. And they can't believe that any of this could hurt anybody because they're not told that it does. The idea of working is that shit that doesn't really hurt you is made to appear to. What the son of Dusty Rhodes, the grandson of a plumber, and slappable face Sammy did here was the opposite. They managed to, with this performance, to convince people that absolutely none of this shit hurt them in any way, even though it did. Your fucking thoughts.
I liked it.
What?
I liked it. You know what? I find Cody so funny. And I think he's the best heel in the business. And I thought this is an example of what he is as a heel. Despite some people cheering him, he was a heel here.
Well, yes, he was. Yes.
Look, I knew what it was going to be and I knew what it wouldn't be. I prefer this to a 6-person ladder match or an 8-person ladder match. It was just 2 people, and of course it gets ridiculous. Some of those spots, I mean, the superplex where he held them up for a while, that was pretty cool. But there were a lot of spots where I'm like, God damn.
You know what? I'll tell you what, that was the smartest thing they did. Do you know why they did it that way? Think about this. Think about the fucking physics. If you're going to superplex a guy off the top of the ladder and you boost him and go backwards in one motion, your feet, as you go backwards, are pushing that ladder out from under you. Right? That only makes sense because of the way that the motion is going. He picked Sammy up because Sammy's not that heavy and Cody's pretty stout. He picked him up and had him straight up in the air, and Sammy's right hand was on the top of the ladder pushing up so that they were straight up and down and there was no motion going anywhere, and then they had to just fall backwards so the ladder stayed up. That was they're taking the bumps smart, but they're not smart bumps to take. Go ahead.
I'll be very honest with you. Once you said they were taking the Starrcade 86 scaffold bumps, I never even thought of it that way. But then when they're holding on to that thing and falling off, those are the bumps you took. The only thing is they don't have Bubba trying to catch them.
Yeah, well, but also Bobby took it. Also Dennis took it. And the people went crazy. And they sold it like they couldn't walk. Bobby did turn his ankle. I obviously didn't have to sell, but you stayed down. That was the end of it.
That one spot where Cody was laid on the ladder on the floor and Sammy dove and, he hit Cody hard, but if you watch the way Sammy spun right underneath him and is almost like he bent in half. I was waiting for one of these guys to get seriously hurt. Thank God they didn't. I'll say it here because it seems to happen a lot with Sammy, but there are going to be a lot of guys with major hip issues at a minimum from the dives where no one catches them at all, where it looks great and they're high up and they flip, and then they just land on the mat next to a guy that's standing there. And it happens to Sammy, it seems, more than others. Right finish. I don't think they should have had Cody go over here.
No.
I enjoyed this for what it was, and they treated it seriously. So even if you say they didn't sell anything, they popped up, and you're right about all of that, there was none of the silliness that you would see in an Orange Cassidy-Adam Cole match, let's say.
That's the only thing that saved it from complete and utter evisceration in my eyes. They were serious about it. Say what you want about what they did. They were serious about it. But again, they've had Danielson showing them what to fucking do lately. They've had Punk showing them what to fucking do. They had MJF go out there and have that fucking match with old fucking Darby. Thank you. Darby Allin. That's an old Scottish folk song. They're seeing what to do, but still they got to go to the stunt show, the car crash stuff, and it doesn't even register as good. I mean, I've saved 2 episodes of AEW Dynamite, the 2 episodes with Bryan Danielson and Adam Page on them, because those are textbooks. But if they want to do this shit, how do you follow it? What do you come back with? How do you rematch something? If you put a guy in the middle of the fucking interstate and run over him with a goddamn 18-wheeler and his guts and brains explode and fly everywhere, and there's nothing left of him but a stain on the tracks, how do you top that? Right? That's why all this shit goes by everybody. They pop at the time and they cheer and laugh. Ooh, wow, that looked great. What a great move. That's what the fans are saying now, because they don't care who wins and who loses, because the matches have been made unimportant. Because nobody gives a shit anymore, because they're not serious about the fucking conflict between their opponent. They just want to do the fancy moves that oh, golly, that was so great. And then we forget about it. And you might forget about it too, except if you end up paralyzed in a fucking iron lung or in the hospital because you did that shit. So the people go, oh, shit, it's okay.
Would you have started hour 1 with this, or would you have started hour 2 with this?
Good Lord. I've got to admit, the better thing, all things considered, for a wrestling show and in the television business, they could have started the top of the hour, hour 2, with a main event like that. But, you know, if they put some of the other shit and people that are on this television show on first and run them off before they see the ladder match, I mean, none of this makes any sense. And it doesn't, there's no, as we've talked about, thread of story amongst main event talent going through the program, leading you to hang with it. It's all just standalone segments. So I don't fucking know.
And, you know, give him credit. He may not do things in a smart way or in a way that lends itself to what some may call booking logic. But Cody Rhodes just kills himself. The last time we saw him, he lit himself on fire. His wife lit him on fire.
Well, that's true.
And now this time he was taking all of these bumps. And whatever you want to say about him, he definitely puts the work in the ring. He definitely kicks the shit out of himself.
Dedication. But I guess he outworks everybody, even Christian Cage.
Does he work anymore?
Well, that's what I was about to say. They gave a guy a catchphrase and a T-shirt that he outworks everyone, and he hadn't wrestled since. Next up in this parade of terror, Tony Schiavone was with Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs. They were out in the snow by the river in Cleveland. And Starks doing a promo. Next week, it's him and Jay Lethal. Well, hey, Jay's been found again. Of course, it sounds like Jay's going to be doing another job, so thanks for coming, Jay. It would have been great if you'd have been treated like a star to come in. Maybe people would have paid attention, but they didn't do anything with the environment. They're out in the snow. Nobody jumped in the snow or jumped in the cold river or threw a snowball. Tony said, "My hand is frozen to the microphone." And that was the end of the segment. I guess they were out there because they saw a nice location to do a pre-tape and then had nothing to put in it related to the snow.
Yeah, it was just a promo and then the usual bad Tony Schiavone comedy at the end. But the good part is, you know, Hobbs and Starks are really good together. They would have fit together doing a promo in the territories just based on a look. Hobbs is out there. He looks like a star.
Yeah.
And Ricky Starks can talk. So I like them together.
You think maybe they'll ever actually have a tag team match?
It'd be nice to see. How come Team Taz is never with Taz?
Well, I don't know what they're... Again, there's no consistency. Team Taz is never with Taz. They're not with each other. They hardly ever wrestle. Every once in a while one does, and when one does, he gets shit kicked out of him, and most of the other team members don't help. Except for Hook, who comes out all on his own and stretches people.
Eating Funyuns.
Huh?
Eating Funyuns.
And eats Funyuns.
And then he leaves.
Wardlow powerbombed the McGee brothers, Tits and Putts. And then we had a 6-man tag team match, playa. Again, help me, Brian. Are they trying to prove that they are not doing what they have been accused of doing by actually doing that thing on national television? It's a 6-man tag with Daniel Garcia and 2.0. We can't do a television program without them. Meanwhile, the Briscoes remain unsigned, and FTR got a chance to eke out a victory over a team with a combined number of professional matches of 14 on the secondary program, but we get to see Garcia and 2.0 constantly. They had a 6-man tag with Jericho, Santana, and Ortiz. Eddie Kingston has come out and told Santana and Ortiz that Jericho's holding them back. They would have been the World Tag Team Champions if it wasn't for Jericho. And they ought to reevaluate their relationship. So now in this match, they are obviously miffed at Jericho, and they refuse to tag him in through the whole thing. And then it's coming off like he's supposed to be the babyface, but yet he does the very thing he's been accused of, which is stealing their spotlight, when the only reason they win the match is because he fucking knocked the guy out with his finish first while he was outside the ring about to walk off on him because they wouldn't tag him. And then fucking Ortiz or Santana hit him with his finish after Jericho knocked the guy out. So this match was rotten, and it did nothing for Santana and Ortiz. Santana and one of the 2.0 guys started, and did you see they threw 40 or 50 sloppy, no-steam punches at each other all over the ring, like they're having a supposed big fight, but nobody's connected with anything, and it didn't look like any good if it did. And then they all started rushing. They were sloppy. They were missing. It was 100 miles an hour. Nobody would just stop and grab a fucking hold and try to get on the same page and salvage the mess and right the ship. They obviously, because of that opening disaster, it had their time cut. And instead of saying, okay, we're gonna revamp what we had down for this match for the time we've got, they just decided we're going to do everything that we had talked about beforehand in half the time. And again, the story was they wouldn't tag Jericho in, so he at one point backslap tagged himself in and just stepped in, and Ortiz did the same thing immediately. And then all the heels ran over and glommed all three of the baby faces, and they went to a break. When they come back from the break, they're getting heat on Ortiz, and Ortiz wipes out all three heels, and then everything comes to a halt because now the story has to come into play. And by the way, you can also have your stories come into play and still lay the goddamn matches out so they don't stop and all the momentum ceases and everything looks like shit. But Ortiz wipes out all three heels, won't tag Jericho, waits till Santana gets back up on the apron and makes a point of tagging him. Santana makes a so-so comeback and ends up with a so-so team move with Santana and Ortiz on 2.0, where one of Santana and Ortiz like waist-locked his partner and then like he was going to give him an O'Connor roll, but he threw him back so the guy could grab the two guys and give him a double cutter, and they were standing in the wrong. What the fuck? Between this being a rotten rushed match with underneath talent as the heels and the distracting story with Jericho, Santana and Ortiz are the longest established tag team there, and we see them as a regular tag team less than anybody, and they never look good when we see them because they're always doing this other bullshit. So it just does nothing for them at all. And like I said, Jericho hit the Judas on the Stooge and knocked him into Santana's finish. So Jericho helped him win and then finished walking off on him because he was mad at them for not tagging him, because he's been burying them and preventing them from being a top team and making them his flunkies. But he actually has been. So they're not in the wrong. He is. But he was placed in the spot to help them win the match. Brian, help me understand this.
Oh, I can't. I thought there was going to be more to that question there. There's not much to understand.
It wasn't a question. It was a plaintive plea for help.
Jericho isn't very good right now, and I know a lot of people don't want to say it, especially people who have been friends with him traditionally, but he doesn't belong in there right now, and he drags anyone down to his level, and it's hard for them to get past it. MJF got past that feud. Jericho never did. And Santana and Ortiz have shown potential, and look, when they first started, Ortiz wasn't in that good a shape, or at least it didn't appear so. He was acting silly. Look at them now. Santana looks like he's in fantastic shape. Ortiz got in what I would assume is as good a shape as he's going to get in, and he acts serious. And we don't see them actually just wrestle tag team matches.
I could do without the Panda Bear paint, but otherwise than that, I would like to see them have tag team matches with FTR or with a goddamn nothing with the Puddin' Gang, and keep the Hardley Boys out of it, but some of the other teams that they have that they could do something with.
But with Jericho in there, it looks like you're watching something. You ever see, like when Bruce Tharpe had those Houston wrestling reels converted, they did something, what's it called? Progressive widening, where to get an old video or old footage to fit a modern HD television.
The old 4x3 aspect of television, which is almost square, is now widescreen, and you have to spread it out.
I was watching Jericho on my TV. I thought I had hit some button and done that to my TV. He had gotten so wide on there. But look, this isn't very good. And I've liked Garcia in 2.0, and even I'm sick of him. And I've defended them against you a lot. But I'm sick of them too. I'd like to see them do something different with Santana and Ortiz. And too much of this Jericho shit's real. Jericho holds people back. It's just not everyone's smart enough to see it, including people who don't realize it's happening to them at times.
And again, Garcia and 2.0, they're not the worst thing that ever happened. They're better than the Pudding Gang, right? But every show, multiple times, attacks. They've done more angles than fucking MJF has in 2 years he's been there. They've had more television matches in the last 3 months than FTR has probably had since they've been with the company. And again, we still have in my opinion, the tag team with the potential to draw more money than any other tag team in the business right now, if they were used properly in the right environment. The Briscoe brothers are hanging out plucking their chickens because these idiots are too busy playing with their trampoline friends. And it's ridiculous. I need some type of help in trying to sort this out. Or understand this. If I could talk to somebody that could help me make sense of, well, I don't think there's anybody that you could talk to that could help make sense of the nonsensical, but there are people you can talk to that can help make sense of some things in your life, Brian, that may not make sense to you, but might need a fresh perspective. I'm not talking about some LSD-induced fever dream like Tony Khan's booking. I'm talking about normal, everyday personal problems that people have that they might need to just talk to somebody, bounce some things off of them, get a second opinion on, whatever the case, somebody to care about it. And that, folks, is what our friends at BetterHelp do. And I don't know if they can help you restore your sanity if you've watched too much AEW television, but they can help you take charge of your mental health and your personal life and the things that are preventing you from achieving your goals or interfering with your happiness. BetterHelp can assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist, not a member of the Pudding Gang. You can start communicating in under 48 hours. It's professional therapy done securely online with a broad range of expertise available, and the service is available for clients worldwide where you can log into your account and send messages to your therapist so you can get timely responses, and you can schedule the weekly video or phone sessions. No waiting rooms. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change therapists. I wish that Tony Khan was as committed to facilitating great wrestling matches as BetterHelp is to facilitating therapeutic matches. Possibly we could blend these things, and it could be therapeutic for me to see how BetterHelp might book the AEW roster. Probably better than Tony. Anyway, BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. You can visit the website, read the testimonials that are posted daily, and if you visit BetterHelp.com, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/JCE, and join the over 2 million people who have taken charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. You can get 10% off your first month's services. BetterHelp.com/JCE. That's a special offer for our listeners. 10% off your first month's services. And, you know, I might go ahead and talk to somebody over there as well to see if I can get on like a crisis line thing where it's 7:55 Eastern on Wednesday nights. Somebody can call me and kind of soothe my nerves before this show comes on. And maybe I'd be in a better mood to be affronted by these assaults on my senses. What do you think, Brian?
I think it sounds like a potential plan, although it may not work out well because I know for a fact you have never watched AEW live on a Wednesday night, so I'm not sure.
There's the rub.
I don't know how 7:55 on Wednesday night would help you.
Well, next on this program, and you know, I just started trying to think about this in my mind. You know, they're giving Lance Archer a big push now. Good old Lance. That's the least they can do for him since he almost broke his neck in their ring trying to impress them with that moonsault a few months ago. But explain this one to me, Desi, Ricky. Dan Lambert is now with Lance Archer and Jake Roberts. It was just when Lambert first showed up last fall that Lance Archer was the guy that came out and on behalf of the AEW roster picked Lambert up and gave him that fucking big, whatever he calls his finish, the big slam. And now he's working for Lambert because Lambert has made some deal that has not been articulated with Jake Roberts to retain the services of Lance Archer. But now here's another problem. Lance Archer and Jake Roberts have both been presented as baby faces over the last several months, but then suddenly the guy that they dropped on his head is going to pay them. And why, if Lambert was attacked by this guy and dropped on his head, why would he want that guy? Why would he trust Lance Archer? Wouldn't he throw some money at somebody else that hadn't tried to hospitalize him? That's just a question. But so now Lance and Jake are back to being heels, and Lance is no longer mad at Dan Lambert and wants to hurt him. He's now taking his money because Lance Archer is the next challenger for Hangman Adam Page for the World Championship, because in the promotion where wins and losses matter and it's run by a statistics nerd and you've got to have a great win-loss record to climb the ladder to get the title chances, the next challenger for the World Championship is a guy who took 4 months off from an injury and has just come back and has had maybe one television win over some subpar fucking schlub. But now he gets the next title match with Adam Page and the title match with Archer and Adam Page, the first in the series, first match between them, whether there's going to be a series or not, we don't know, is a Texas death match. Why is a Texas death match the stipulation for the very first match between these two fucking guys when they haven't had a regular match yet? We're going immediately to one man cannot continue. That's the only way this thing can be over. Before we have an actual just wrestling match for the challenger who hasn't wrestled because of injury in the past 4 months. Help me out here.
There is no help. I won't even be able to explain this anymore when the feud ends after a one-fall 15-minute time limit match. They've never feuded. They've never had anything between them. Let's go right to Texas Death Match. Cody was off TV for a week. We need to have a unified champion. Let's go right to a ladder match. It's hot-shotting gimmick matches.
So then after that, and by the way, also, Adam Page was very unconvincing in his comments in the package promoting this Texas death match. They got a world champion that still needs a lot of fucking work. And it's not even his fault because they haven't let him do any of the work that he should have done before he became world champion to get good at it. As we mentioned, this is ass backwards too. They put the belt on him and now they got people trying to get him over. So Tony Schiavone was in a stairway. I don't know. Is this where we used to have a lot of stairways that we liked to hang out in back in the territory days because that was where most of the blowjobs happened. But they have these people in a stairway off in a building somewhere with Tony Schiavone. This was Cage, Jungle Boy, Dino Douche, Matt Hardy, and Private Party. Private Party are the #1 contenders to the tag team title. When was the last time they wrestled a tag team match on television? And how much farther before that was that they actually won one on television?
I have no idea. I was surprised when they announced they were #1 contenders.
Well, they announced that, and everybody else was surprised too. And one note on this interview: nobody saying any of these words believes one of them. That was my note on this interview. And then, speaking of meaning the things you say, like Mussolini, no Coke, Pepsi. Here comes CM Punk. About goddamn time. Takes over the room. Takes his time on the entrance, but it's not interminable like the WWE entrances. He's keeping busy. He's moving around. He's looking at people. And he starts talking to them. And he's talking conversationally and naturally. And he stirs the people up to want to see him fight MJF. He's got MJF's scarf on that he stole last week. It's under his jacket. When he takes the jacket off, he does promo on the cheap scarf and on Long Island. A lot of disreputable people come from that part of the country. And he wants MJF tonight. MJF comes out with the music, comes out in his suit and the same scarf. Apparently now we've seen there's a lot of these scarves around. And of course he turns down the challenge and won't waste it on Cleveland, and the fans are chanting asshole. And MJF finally agrees, okay, next week in Chicago, and we've heard this before, it's going to be CM Punk against MJF. He announced it next week in Chicago, Punk's hometown. Imagine that. And then I know it's my boy MJF. It's my hero Mussolini. Brian, if I said they went too long here, would you agree with me?
I would this week, yes.
Yeah. Because I didn't want to paint you in a corner there, but I got to be truthful. I wrote at the point that he had announced the match, I wrote MJF is teetering on going long here. And he meandered. And the point that he was trying to make after he wins next week, you're going to see the real CM Punk. If he doesn't get his way, he'll sue, or he'll complain, or he'll quit like he did in 2014 when he quit here in Cleveland and blah, blah, blah. MJF spoke too long continuously here. I'm not saying that it was bad delivery. I'm not saying it was bad material. I think it probably could have been said in a more economic number of words, to quote something that Jim Ross said to me one time. Could have been more economical with the number of words, Corny. I also think he spoke too long continuously without Punk. There was no back and forth jousting. This was MJF doing a soliloquy, and it started dragging. Not because he didn't drop his energy level. It was a little much. Too many words to say things that could have been said more, like I'm doing now. Too many words. Could have been shorter. Punk started to respond and told, and he had a good line. The best thing I ever did was leave, and the best thing I ever did was come back. Okay, we get it. He told MJF off, and he fired the people up, but now Punk was going a little bit long. Because this whole thing had gotten a little long. And then all of a sudden, here comes FTR and Wardlow. It's nice to see FTR can come out and do flunky business. We ought to call them the Piss Boys.
Let's not do that to FTR.
Well, that's all they get to do is come out and carry the fucking bucket, collect the piss, and walk off. But anyway, Spears tackles Punk in the ring from behind while FTR and Wardlow are coming out, and the heels all glom him, and they gut-shotted him with a chair, and they choked him with a scarf. Wardlow was standing there, not really excited about this or wanting to be involved because of that subplot that we've had going on for 2 years now. And MJF taunted Punk, and then MJF ordered Wardlow to powerbomb him, and Wardlow powerbombed him on a chair that was laying in the ring. The powerbomb's not bad enough. It has to be on a chair. But we went into sports entertainment land, which is what we have stayed away from with Punk. They're doing this. There was no bell ringing. There were no referees coming down. There was no security. There was no help. There was no urgency. It's the biggest star in the company, CM Punk. And I know, some people bouncing on their trampoline was, oh no, it's Kenny. No, the biggest star in this fucking company, if it's not named Bryan Danielson, is CM Punk. One of those two has the fucking spot locked down. And you can't tell me if a gang of people is beating up the biggest star in the company and it's not supposed to happen that somebody wouldn't be trying to do something. It's distracting from the angle when they're not trying to do something. That's why when you set these things up, you explain to the people that are supposed to be trying to do something what they're supposed to be doing or trying to do and to not succeed. But no bell, no referees, no help. They beat him up, and then MJF sits cross-legged, Indian style, as they called it when I was a kid, on him, on his chest, and says, "See you in Chicago." This had to last 20 minutes. And, I mean, hey, Babe Ruth struck out every now and then. But I could have done with half this long, and I could have done with a little more urgent, chaotic physicality and believable violence at the end instead of a sports entertainment angle where nobody was trying to stop the crime from taking place. Your thoughts?
I did think it went too long. I thought that what they were setting up was good, but it could have been done a little quicker. I agree with just about everything you said. I didn't mind the beatdown and specifically the powerbomb under the chair spot as much. Was it superfluous? Maybe. But it didn't, out of all the things we see on this show, that was the least of the things that bothers me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm picking at nits here on this was by far the best thing on the show and the best talent on the show, but still they can achieve better than this. This was a rare swing and maybe a single or whatever.
And it may not be the best usage of them, but we got FTR out there interacting with CM Punk. It's a little better than them not on TV for weeks at a time or doing feuds with Arn Anderson's little friends or whatever they're doing. I'm happy to see them doing something with a main eventer. And hopefully FTR will be used a little better in the future. But we're getting ready for the match. It's been, 3 months or so they've been building up MJF and Punk. I am really curious to see them in the ring finally.
I definitely want to see the match next week. And in Chicago, the fucking response will be off the charts. I just, again, when it's top talent and they're capable of doing such good work and it's a main event match and it's something that people want to see, if you're going to shoot an angle, I want an angle with heat. I want an angle with chaos. I want an angle where the guy getting the shit kicked out of him is in jeopardy and the heels are riding high. I want to see if we can induce in somebody's fucking mind out in that crowd the thought that that's what we used to go for. That's what every time I set up a fucking heat angle, that's what I was going for. I had in my mind, there's somebody in this crowd that we can fucking take on this ride that will lose control of themselves and think if I don't do something to stop this, nobody's going to, and at least try to start over that rail. That's the idea of a fucking heat angle. Of course, when 20 or 30 or 40 of them get the same idea at the same time, then you've gone too far. But I've never done one without wanting to create that environment. And, it goes down to you have to get everybody involved. You have to tell each referee or each underneath guy running in or each security guy. Sometimes I would tell guys specifically how many bumps to take off the apron when they were playing King of the Hill in the ring before they finally fucking laid there and sold one. Just to make sure that we had enough people trying to come in. I would make sure I told the guy ringing the bell that if I'm not on the fucking headset queuing you, just count to fucking 15 and start ringing it again. I would give everybody cues, places to be, times to run in, stagger it so it looks like more help is needed. Go back and find the WCW Saturday night show where the Midnight Express did the angle with Pillman and Zink. And we did the fucking Vegematic on Pillman's throat with the racket over the top of it. You see referees being tossed out. Then you see other people coming in, try to save. It's a staggered run-in. We're playing King of the Hill. We're keeping people out. It's urgent. That's happened I saw these angles when I was a fucking kid, and I saw people coming over the rail to respond to them. And sometimes you have to go a while. before it fucking clicks in. And it's not going a while of shitty looking phony stuff. It's going a while of chaos and jeopardy. And you build that fucking environment, and that's what makes people want to see the guy that just got the shit kicked out of him or whatever happened to him come back later and get even. Elsewise, it's just meaningless motion. If they don't believe it, they can't get into it. They can't lose themselves in it, or they can't even say, well, now say what you want. This shit's all set up, but goddamn, leave him alone. Whatever. This is I'm getting grumpier. Tony Schiavone was there with Griff Garrison, Julia Hart, and Sterling the fucking lawyer. And Mark Sterling's wearing a neck brace because somebody dropped him on his head. I can't even remember who it was. Julia Hart's wearing an eye patch. Griff Garrison's there wearing his varsity blondes jacket like the fucking goof in high school. Sterling wanted Julia to sign a release for a match with Jane Cargill on the Friday night throwaway show, and Griff didn't want her to do it. He said, read it first. So she naturally says, don't tell me what to do, and ignores him and signs it immediately. So the one-eyed girl signs a release that it's not my fault if I get hurt because I can't see, to the lawyer wearing a neck brace who's working a goddamn insurance scam, and now Julia is mad at both Griff and Pillman, apparently. What the fuck? And then Layla Hirsch versus Red Velvet with a jump start. Because, of course, it's a grudge match from the backstage heel turn that Layla Hirsch did last week, where in a minute and a half pre-tape, they were all friends, her and Red Velvet, and goddamn, who was the other girl?
Statlander.
Sheena Queen of the Jungle, or Queen of Sheena the Jungle, or whoever the fuck it was. Chris Statlander, okay. Layla Hirsch jumps them from behind in the pre-tape and beats them up, and now it's a grudge match. So here's a jump start. And I skipped through this, thankfully. But Layla Hirsch got some heat on old Red Velvet afterwards. And here came Statlander, and Layla Hirsch ran out of the ring, and Statlander chased her, and Layla Hirsch runs up the ramp, and Hirsch stops at the bottom of the ramp, and they turn around and stare at each other, and that's when JR, and this was retweeted, and I got it, he hit the magical wall line, which he misspoke. But did you see this on Twitter?
I did, because I think I saw you retweet it.
What Jim Ross said was, when Layla Hirsch, that's done all this damage, runs up the entryway, and Statlander chases her out and then stops at the bottom, and then Layla turns around and they just stare at each other. It was a saying that Bill Watts used to have, and JR misspoke, but he was just seeing it, and he was frustrated, like everybody that knows what they're doing in the wrestling business is when they watch this show. They're frustrated. Watts used to scream at the guys. When baby faces would make a save and the heels would run off, when the heels would bail out on the floor, the baby faces would stop. And the heels would stop and stand there because, and some of them were bad about this, they wanted to get their heat. They wanted to raise their hand and flip off the crowd or whatever, and people boo them. But it buried the baby faces because, as Watts would say, what the fuck, did an invisible wall just rise up out of the floor and you can't follow them? If you were mad enough to run out here and chase them out of the ring for what they've done, why do you stop running when they're still there? So that way the heels figured out, when we're being chased out of the ring, we've done our damage, and this is a good lesson for most heels to learn. When you've done your damage and the baby face is hit for the save, when you bail out of that, especially if there's no contact called for, if they just say powder no contact and you can get out of there without getting a shit kicked out of you, do it and keep running. Because this is something I learned when I managed Adrian Street, and things were different in England back in those days, and Dundee yelled at us about it. Adrian would do a fuck finish, and we'd get heat, and we'd cheat, and we'd win, and then instead of getting out on the floor and getting the fuck out of there with the heat, he would stand there with his arms up, and he would milk the crowd, and he'd yell at people, and he'd let them yell at him. And then Dundee told me, and I think Adrian was a little cranky with it, but he'd been doing that a long time. But it registered with me, you've just insulted these people. You've just pissed them off. You have made them mad. Whatever you in the ring with whatever you've done to their hero, the babyface wrestler, you've made them mad. You've insulted them. You've the equivalent of calling them names or whatever. Now get the fuck out of there. Because the longer you stay there, the less mad they're going to be at you. Even if somebody doesn't come out and beat you up physically, you're giving them the opportunity to throw shit at you, to cuss you, to call you no good motherfucker, you piece of shit. Every horrible phrase, there'd be phrases that they would be kicking people out of AEW shows right and left for uttering. But the longer you stand there and let them do it, the more they've got it out of their system. The less they're mad at you. They're venting at you right now. No, that's not what you want. When you've made them mad, you've hit the insult, you've fucking slapped them in the face, you kicked their dog, whatever simile you want to draw, they're as mad as they're going to be when you hit the floor. Get the fuck out of there. Because now they're mad they didn't get a chance to tell you what they thought of you. God damn. Next week, I'll tell that motherfucker what I think of him. Because now he's gone like a piece of shit coward. They're still mad. They didn't get to yell. They didn't get to cuss you. They didn't get to throw nothing at you. Does this make sense?
Yes, although maybe not for Statlander and Layla Hirsch.
Well, nothing makes sense for an alien from the Andromeda Galaxy and a girl that's 4'6", both tall and wide. It doesn't have to make sense anyway. Nobody gives a shit. But the fucking principle is the same. If the heel don't run when the babyface, and Lance Storm had the perfect solution to this on his Twitter when everybody was debating this. When you run in to make the save and the heel bails, go to the babyface you've just saved. Then you can stop running because you're doing what you came to do. And while you're checking on that babyface, the heel can put enough space in between him and you that there's no reason for you to take off after him anyway, because by now you ain't going to catch him. Just stop at the babyface. That's what every smart babyface since the beginning of saves has done. If they ain't going to catch the heel, they don't get outrun, they don't let the guy escape, they make the save and then check on the babyface, gives the heel a chance to get away. Nevertheless, that's when JR said, well, I don't understand this magical wall that comes up. It was an invisible wall, but it could be magical too. But that came from Bill Watts, who taught us all how to make sense of this shit. And who now, if we asked to watch any of these shows, would probably take the big stick he used to carry and beat all of us into fucking jelly.
Or he'll give us a speech about the Russians. One or the other.
One or the other. It wouldn't be about these shows. I couldn't get him to watch one of my shows 20 years ago and give me a critique on it. I don't think that the Federal Reserve has yet printed the money that it would take to get Bill Watts to watch any of these programs.
Hold on. You asked him to watch OVW and he wouldn't?
Yes. It was after we did Christmas Chaos. I sent a couple of TVs. I said, could you tell me what you think? I never heard anything back. He didn't want to watch any fucking wrestling.
Not enough Russians.
There you go. Actually, we had a Russian. No, we didn't. He was Czechoslovakian. Anyway, so then we were in the ring with Tony Schiavone. Boy, he gets around. And Britt Baker, who the ring was set up with all her Pro Wrestling Illustrated awards and her magazine covers. And, you know, she's probably the best heel girl promo in the business, her and Charlotte in different ways. She's Britt's a smart-ass bitch, and Charlotte is more of a queen ice bitch type of thing. But, she can talk her ass off.
Although you want to talk things that went long, I thought this went long too.
Well, she didn't have a lot to say. But the thing that distracted me was, again, It doesn't make sense that she's a heel, but people like her because she's entertaining, and you take your entertainment where you can get it in this company. But she's a heel, people like her, but she knocks them. But Tony Schiavone, the announcer, is a good friend of hers, even though the announcer is not supposed to be friends with the heels because the announcer is a representative of the promotion. And why would the announcer that you have positive thoughts of validate the low and underhanded actions of a heel by saying what a great person she is? So that hasn't made any sense from the start, but it's some thing that tickles them that they talk about and get a joke over backstage or whatever. So nevertheless, but what was just so distracting, Tony's in the ring. He introduces her, says, here she is. Then Britt Baker takes the microphone, and the announcer, the host of the program, just walks over and stands in the turnbuckle in one of the corners with a frumpy look on his face for this entire promo. And the way that they were shooting it with the handheld in the ring, he was behind her the whole time. He didn't even go to a neutral corner where he wouldn't be on camera all the time. So while Britt is talking, you see the host of the program leaning in the corner in the back, having given her the microphone and turned the program over to her. When is the last time that you saw Howard Cosell, after the goddamn Ali fight is over with, go in to get the comments from Muhammad Ali, hand Ali the microphone, and go stand over in the fucking corner? It was distracting because it's phony. Because they've got all the people in there to make it look right, and they still go with this sports entertainment bullshit. You don't hand the guy the fucking microphone and just let him do what he wants and just stand there. Or worse, the announcer, here's the microphone, and then just gets out of the ring. You're the host of the show. You're interviewing somebody. Why is this difficult? It does basketball, baseball, football, courtside, field side, sideline interviews. Every network does them. Nobody does this. Very off-putting to me.
I'm a little sick, too, of the promos mentioning local sports teams. It's happening every show now.
Well, I can understand that. I've done that many times in the past. And with Cleveland, you've got such a rich history and tradition of shitty sports teams to work with. So that's a heel thing. I mean, that's, I can't find fault with that. At a baseball game, I got a couple people try to climb over the fucking, well, it wasn't a railing. I'd climb over the dugout, whatever the baseball terminology is, that Cleveland Indians game. I said, hey, the last people the Indians beat was Custer. Fuck you. Anyway, we did get a recap of 2 weeks ago when FTR challenged Brock Anderson and Shoddy Lee to a tag team match, and then they couldn't even have that because of COVID protocols with somebody. And now, as I mentioned, FTR will get to eke out a close victory over two guys that have had a combined total of 14 matches in front of people. And then in a bizarre demonstration, display, snit, whatever it was, the announcers are talking, and Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose come out to the stage, mad at Ruby Soho, and they want her next week. And Vicky did her, excuse me. And then Nyla Rose did a promo, and she didn't do a bad job at it, but nobody gave a fuck. It came off flat as fuck, and then they just walked back in 45 seconds. We want Ruby Soho. We want her next week. Fuck it. Boom. Done. Remember when Ruby Soho was going to be one of the most popular fucking women in the business for about a week and a half till they botched her too?
Yep.
And then we come to the end of this thing. It's the end of a lot, frankly, folks. The end of an era. See what I did there? It was the end of an era. It's undisputedly the end of an era. There was an era in wrestling where the Undisputed Era were a top group, a faction. They were the only I won't say the only in every case. They were the most watchable and most highly anticipated appearances on NXT. They did some great shit. They seemed serious about everything. That was an era that is now over because the official undisputed era has been finished off. Not only did they get 3/4 of the top heel group for their opposition formerly on Wednesday nights, they bring Fish in and beat him like a fucking drum. They bring Kyle O'Reilly in and fucking neuter him. And they bring Adam Cole in. And I can't say this is character assassination because Adam has had a hand in it also. I think it is an assisted suicide. Because between the way that they have used Adam, the people that they have surrounded him with, the lack of giving a complete teetotal fuck about his appearance and his physique, that not having the people in NXT that were apparently keeping him from appealing or going along with his worst instincts and were keeping him on the straight and narrow, all this stuff has disappeared. And now, in the final nail in Adam Cole's professional coffin, they had a lights out match, no disqualification, between Adam Cole and Pockets. They had him working matches with this clown before. At least he was winning. It was still an insult. I can't imagine anybody in the professional wrestling industry serious about what they're doing and wanting to have a good career being booked against Pockets and not immediately refusing and say, no, this is not going to happen. Fire me if you want to. I'm not going to bury myself and destroy my career on national television. But nobody's got the guts or the gumption anymore. They don't have the balls. They don't give a shit about their profession. They'll just do whatever with whoever. So again, a rematch in a no DQ garbage match. Lights out. Eddie Graham would be spinning in his grave if he could hear about this. Not only did they put Adam Cole back in the ring with Pockets, Pockets won. Pockets beat him. They beat a guy that was just 3 months ago was a WWE superstar that had a debut on one of their pay-per-views and people went out of their minds. They managed to assimilate 2 of the 3 members of his group with him. And that was to come to this inflection point where the company mascot not only beat Adam Cole on television, but risked his fucking safety and well-being by giving him some stupid bump off the stage while he did it. So not only is Adam Cole now completely wasted and finished as a serious talent for this company, but they could have hurt him at the same time just because this goddamn goof, idiot, imbecile, pinhead, moron with his hands in his pockets and his thumb in his ass can look good because Tony Khan is tickled by him and dressed up like him on Halloween. Tony Khan would have gone a long way toward dispelling the notion that this is a rich kid's vanity project if he didn't serendipitously get talent of this quality in his fucking upstart company and then book him in garbage matches with the mascot. They started out with a sloppy, phony-looking children's hockey fight that all the kids are doing these days. And it got worse from there. At one point, this was what everybody wanted me to see, because I was zipping through some of this, because why fucking dignify Pockets with watching him? Adam Cole goes under the ring to pull a chair out like that would be necessary. against this fucking clown. And when he pulls it out, Danhausen came with it. He was hanging on the other end of it. So now I guess I'm going to end up hating this guy. I believe we've mentioned the reason why that I've never watched this guy actually on a wrestling program or anything related to wrestling is because I knew I'd hate it. But when we saw the cameos and his promos, we got a tickle out of him because he was funny. If I see him in a wrestling context, I'm probably going to hate his guts, and that's apparently is coming up. But once again, and I'm glad he's back from his broken leg, and I don't wish the guy any ill. But my God, talk about promotional malfeasance. Again, I remind you, Mark and Jay Briscoe are cleaning out a chicken coop, and Danhausen has now been signed to the second biggest company in the fucking country. So they even went through a break. When they came back from the break in this match, there was a chain in the ring. There was a garbage can in the ring, garbage can lid in the ring, 3 chairs in the ring. They're taking bumps in the furniture. Suddenly, for no reason except why wouldn't they? Here comes Brandon Cutlet and Wheelie Yuta and Bobby Fish and Muffin Top and the Harley Boys and Trent and Romero. And they all come out and do the sloppy indie fight that all the indie guys do. And then Cole hits Pockets with a nut shot, and Pockets doesn't sell it, and he reaches in his pants and pulls out a cup. Well, that was kind of cute. I've seen that done before in wrestling. It would have been even cuter if he'd reached in and showed that there was no reason for him to sell because he has no fucking balls. Have you noticed that this guy just aggravates the fuck out of me because it's so silly and so stupid and so disrespectful, and I can't imagine that we've come this far, we've gone this far in the business that this guy even has a job or can get booked on a show. And I may be 60 and in perfect health. I'm still bigger than he is, and I'd love to go out in public one of these days just so I could slap him like that goddamn idiot with a sock and the snake on his fucking arm. But nevertheless, after he pulls out the cup and doesn't sell his fictitious balls, he does fake kicks to Adam Cole's shin and then gives Adam Cole his own move, the Panama Sunrise, which gets a 2 count. Then they fight outside the ring, into the tunnel, up on the stage, and back to the Tony position. I can't call it the gorilla position. I liked Gorilla. I don't want to disrespect him. I'll call it the Tony position. And Cole dumps Pockets through the table and covers him, and there's a referee there with a 2 count. It's falls count anywhere, too, apparently now. Of course, every lights out match is falls count anywhere, except that's never been the case, ever. This is every stupid, phony, idiotic trope, to use everybody's favorite word, of modern outlaw garbage wrestling. At that point, when they went through Tony's table, I couldn't wait. I fast-forwarded to the end. They were on top of the entranceway, and I swear to God, I'm telling the truth here. This is not comedic exaggeration. This is exactly what was on the television program. Pockets hugs Adam Cole. Like, he just hugs him. And Cole acts like he's trying to struggle and couldn't get loose. Even though this is not Joe LeDuc bear hugging him, this is this wafer-thin fucking idiot with his hands in his pockets. Well, now he didn't even have his hands joined. He just hugged Cole. Cole acts like he can't get loose. And then they just both fall off the stage. They just fell. It's not like Pockets gave him something. It's not like they did but they just fell off the stage, and Cole landed back first and Pockets was on top. And at least it wasn't cardboard and a crash pad that went poof, like old Poof Jericho. They got balsa wood for this, so that was even worse because now, for no reason otherwise than to placate the goof that the boss thinks is his favorite wrestler, Cole took a chance on going through and getting cut up and sliced up with that balsa wood, and Pockets pins him in the middle of the goddamn wreckage. 1, 2, 3. Thanks for coming, Adam Cole. You used to be a star. Now you're a goddamn jack-off piece of shit. I don't know why while you were down there, he didn't fucking pull out his skid-marked underwear and wipe them on your face. That's the equivalent of what they just did to you. So now, that's the first Pockets match that I've watched since this fiasco started. Talking about AEW on television, and that'll be the last one, and that'll also be the last Adam Cole match I watch, because it's no longer even necessary to give him any help, advice, little rah-rah speech. It's wasted. It's done. It's over. Might as well book him out in PWG with the Muffin Gang, the Puddin' Gang with Muffin Top. They'll have fun. They can just wheel their trampoline in from the backyard. This guy was a serious fucking talent. He's done. He's over. It's finished. Kaput. In the archives. History. Vapor, as Buddy Landell would say. He's vapor. That's what I thought about that.
There are some, I'll even say stupid fans out there who have been a little upset with some of your critiques and my critiques here on the show, saying that Adam Cole's doing such great work. How could anyone have a problem with what Adam Cole is doing in AEW? Adam Cole sucks right now. We've talked about his physical shape. He's in worse physical shape than almost anyone listening right now. Even if you're big and fat, you may have a little muscle tone somewhere. It looks like he doesn't go to the gym.
Hey, it takes a little bit of muscle to move all that flab around.
He comes out there with that leather jacket on, or that coat, whatever. He looks like he's wearing his older brother's jacket. He's got the hair, and he's got the look into the camera when he does his little pose that everyone likes doing, because everyone likes chanting everything. But other than that, he doesn't look like a fucking wrestler. You can critique anyone you want. You can even say Pockets. Orange Cassidy has muscles.
He looks like a guy that works over at Valvoline and goes by the gym a couple of nights a week.
He looks like he goes to the gym. Looks like he could be athletic.
Yes.
Adam Cole does not.
It doesn't look like he could be a celebrity or a star or talented, but he looks athletic.
He looks more like a star than Adam Cole right now.
I'm not arguing that. That's the state of it. He looks worse than the biggest joke in the company.
Adam Cole is a guy that could do all the moves and kick out the same way everyone else does. But boy, I liked him in NXT, and I'm like you, I don't want to see him. I felt like this for a while now.
When he came to Ring of Honor, he was 19 years old. Him and O'Reilly, we said, this is the future because these kids are serious. O'Reilly was training his ass off in the MMA. He was, Adam Cole came, he was always prepared. He was always ready to go. He didn't have any bad habits that I was aware of at that point in time. I'm talking about substances or anything. He apparently has some bad habits now, the friends he picks. His promos were excellent from the start. He not only could speak well and articulately, but he had conviction in his voice, and he seemed serious about what he was doing. He learned. He got better. After I left Ring of Honor, I didn't watch a bunch of it, but I see that he was on top there for some time, and then went to NXT and was on top there. And I thought, this kid has his shit together. He's talented. He's serious. He takes the business seriously. He wants to excel. He's not a jack off. And then this all happens. If obviously I was wrong about him, because if I hadn't been wrong about him when he got there, he would have said, look, no. You just got me from NXT. I have buzz. I have a career going. Put me in the goddamn mix with these guys and I'll perform for you. Don't put me in the ring with the Puddin' Gang. Don't make me fuck with the guy with his hands in his pockets. That's for jokers, outlaw guys, and fucking job guys. If he was serious about his business and if he was confident in his ability in it, he would have refused to interact with any of those people, and he would have done what Danielson and Punk have done, which is apparently gone around Tony, cherry-picked their opponents, and told them how things are going to be, which is why all their shit's good.
He also needed to go to the gym. Again, I'm going to say this again. Unless he's ill and we don't know it, there's no excuse for him to come into AEW looking like that.
Yeah, we've seen the picture. He didn't come to AEW looking like that. He came to AEW looking a lot better. Now he looks like that. It's been a steady decline. You've seen the pictures from last year in NXT where he had tone to him. He didn't weigh 250 pounds. He had a tan, and he had a couple of muscles. And now it looks like he's been floating in the river for 3 days, and he doesn't have a goddamn muscle in his body. And he's given up. I know if I was a professional wrestler and I was forced to wrestle pockets, I would give up too, because I would know my career is done. I'm finished. But he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to just give up and just roll over and say, okay, whatever. That means he did it because he doesn't care not to do it, which means he isn't as serious or as much of a talent as I unfortunately thought he was all these years. I have never been so disappointed.
Or he actually believes it's good, which is even worse. But what I was going to say before... He doesn't
believe it. He's been around the business for 10 fucking years. He knows that these guys are jack-offs. He knows what's right and what's wrong. He's playing with his friends. He doesn't give a shit what he looks like. And he's out there fucking taking bumps off the entranceway with the fucking mascot. He knows that it's rotten, and he doesn't give a shit because he's getting paid by a billionaire Mark, and he's having fun. He's not serious.
The one that's going to disappoint me the most, I think, is actually not Adam Cole, because this is who Adam Cole is. I accept it. This is going to be him going forward. Bobby Fish was brought in and not used well at all at the beginning, to the point where he doesn't mean much right now. But Kyle O'Reilly was the one coming in who actually probably had the most potential to do something with. They had finally broken him off from them in NXT, made him a single. Of course, when they switched to 2.0, that was the end of him there, but he's now, again, just a guy aligned with the guys, as opposed to someone who probably has the ability and the talent right now to do something else.
And again, a guy who works hard, has a completely different style, and not only that, but a style that makes him look like a fighter, even at that slim frame. He's got the Diaz attitude going on for him, the Diaz brothers. His shit looked nice and real and legitimate. Are they going to stick him in the ring with the fucking guy with the hands in the pockets? Kyle is somebody who actually may have the balls and guts to stand up for himself and say, no, this would be detrimental not only to the business, but my career, just because, Tony, you get a kick out of him. I don't need to be doing this. He might actually do that. We'll find out. But he had, I was going to say he has a ton of potential. He had a ton of potential. I don't know now whether you can trust any of those guys in these hands, because the younger guys and the guys that want to contribute the most are the ones that will allow themselves to be shot in the foot and just do what they're told. And the top guys and the guys with more experience and the guys that know better are going to pick their own shots mostly. And that's why their shit sucks less. Or in the case of Jericho, he's doing his own shit. It makes everybody else look bad, and he thinks it makes him look good. But, guys of that age, Kyle, I guess Cole, whatever, they're just going to do what they're told to do. And it's a shame because there's no place else for Kyle to go. He would have been wasted in NXT 2.0, but now he's going to be wasted here. And that's a really valuable, different kind of talent that you could have made something out of. But it's rapidly becoming late for him because now he's in the flunky group of the guy that just got beat by the mascot. So how fucking good is he? Talk about the email from the fan earlier in the show where, the Briscoes just got beat by a bunch of fucking backyarders in 6 minutes. So how long will it take real wrestlers to beat them? That's common sense and logic, which unfortunately nobody in the wrestling business uses anymore because they're all convinced that they're smart to the business. They're so smart to the business, they're fucking idiots. They've gone around the business and come back up behind it from the other side. They've gone so far. So anyway, that's what happened on that program. Do you remember, was it 6 weeks ago where my God, this is AEW one night for an hour and a half. This is one of the best wrestling programs I've seen in years. They're getting their shit together. They're going to win this thing. Vince is handing them all the talent. Old Nick Khan up there is fucking cutting all their goddamn darlings, that the wrestlers that the people would like. It's all going AEW's way. And now AEW responds by putting on several weeks in a row of some really shitty fucking television with shit that doesn't make sense and misusing their talent. Fuck you, Vince. You're not going to let us win that easy. We'll goddamn show you. We're going to take a baseball bat and hit ourselves in the nuts with it. I've never seen people trying harder to lose a fucking fight. I'm done. How about you?
I'm ready for the Royal Rumble.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about in just a couple of days on Tuesday's Drive-Thru. We'll see if the Royal Rumble is anything that it's cracked up to be, and we'll examine the WWE's attempts to counter-program this facetious falderall that they have on the other channel. Did I ever tell you, the Rumble? A lot of kids, when they're little, they get toy train sets, right? Did you ever have a toy train set?
I didn't, but I know that kids have gotten
But you
those.
know kids have had toy train sets. I never got a toy train set when I was a kid. My parents got me a toy subway. I just stood in the middle of the room and stared at the floor, and every once in a while it rumbled.